Hi everyone, welcome to my channel. If you're new here, hi, my name is KAIZEN TSHEGO, and if you're an oldie but a goodie, hey girl, hey. Before I begin, I just want to wish you all tuning in an incredible 2024. I mentioned on my Instagram stories that I just have this deep feeling that this year is going to be one for the books. It's going to be the most magical year for us. So if you are in agreement, give me a thumbs up, and I just want to send you positivity, love, light, protection, and just good vibes, and wishing you an incredible 2024. May all of your hopes and wishes and dreams manifest. May they all come true, and praying that this is your best year yet. So in today's video, I want to cover something that is quite different to what I usually cover on the channel. If you've been around for some time, you'll know that my primary niches are hair and beauty, but I recently expanded out of my niche with my Zara vlog, which I will put up here if you haven't seen it, and I was quite overwhelmed by the response that I received from that video, both on Instagram as well as on YouTube, where a lot of you were encouraging me to post more content like this. And interestingly, at the back of that video, there was some additional interest around what I actually do for a living, aka my career. What is the thing that keeps me busy when I'm not talking to you on YouTube? So I thought, you know what? We're nearing 20,000 subscribers. It's a new year. We've built some kind of a relationship over the years on YouTube, and I'm actually ready to open up about that chapter or that aspects of my life and introduce some career content. So I hope you enjoy it and I hope you find it helpful. I'm really excited to share. I've been working for almost a decade now, so I think I have a lot of interesting and insightful things to share with you, especially because I have been testing some of these topics and some of this advice off camera, and it's been very well received. So I thought, you know what, if my colleagues and my acquaintances and friends benefit from this information, I'm pretty sure my YouTube community would gravitate towards it as well. So let's kick off the first video of the expansion into this new niche slash venture, a new aspect of my life. I hope you enjoy it and I hope you find it helpful. So having come out of a really rough period, I think, as a collective, and I'm referring to the you know what, I think there's been a lot of apprehension around being positive and having an optimistic outlook towards life and career and everything else going on in the world. When I look back over the past almost 10 years of me working, the one thing that I know for sure is that we are operating in a new world. However, there are still some things that form the foundation or the basis of the world of work, especially in corporate South Africa. So what I know for sure, and I'm pretty sure you'll resonate with this, is that we are no longer living in a pre-2019 world, and we're also no longer living in the 2020 to 2022 period. We're now, I think, firmly out of it, and that actually compelled me to kind of take stock of what does the new world look like, and what are the facts or the truths that I know about working and operating in this environment that can carry me into the new world that we now live in as a collective. And upon reflection and thinking about my career and all the things that I have achieved and accomplished and what I still want to achieve and accomplish, I ended up thinking through some of the things that have really helped me to get to where I've gotten, that I believe will remain a constant into the future. And these are the things that I want to share with you today. So with all of that said, here are my top 8 career lessons that I've learned in the past decade. The first one is around the importance of creating your brand. And I know it sounds very dated to say your personal brand matters, but it actually does. What I've learned about corporate is if you aren't intentional about crafting your image, whether it's physically the way that you look or how you show up at work, your perception and your brand and your image will be crafted for you. So it's very important to be intentional about who you want to be in the space that you work in and how you show up. So here's a practical example of 2 or 3 things that I've done. From a physical aspect, it's very important to me how I am received physically. I love dressing up, I love looking good, and I love for the way that I look to introduce me into a room. As a result, I take care of my physical appearance, I focus on grooming, the clothes that I wear, and how I physically present myself in my workspace, because that covers the aspect of people who I haven't introduced myself to. The image that must come to their mind is that I am well dressed, I'm well put together, and I take myself seriously because I think about how I show up, literally show up to the workplace. The The two other aspects are around my craft. Very early on in my career, I decided that I wanted to be known for something when it comes to my work. Now, if you think about a corporation, right, we are all hired to do certain things, to fulfill certain roles in order for the corporation to essentially, fundamentally generate a revenue. So we can see ourselves as resources that are being utilized and being compensated for exerting some kind of output that benefits the organization and ourselves. I wanted to make sure that with whatever output it was that I laid my hands on, people would know that it's passed through my hands, whether it be the attention to detail or elevating a piece of work or taking my time with it or making sure that it is meticulous, it is detail oriented, it has no errors. I wanted people to know that I left my mark on a piece of work, and that is something that I have done to set me apart. The second thing that I have done that I really do pride myself in is I've learned the art of corporate storytelling. And I think that when you say this to people, they really do think, oh, whatever, you know how to speak. But it's such an incredible and crucial skill to have in corporate, where it's one thing to put your inputs together, but it's another to be able to sell your inputs and to sell your work and to position your work. And I've learned how to position not only my work, but to position the stories that we tell about the work that we do as a team. And it helps us to gain rapport and trust within our spaces that we operate in. The second one is around networking. To put it into context, when you enter work for the first time, so for example, I entered the workplace through a graduate program. And when you enter the graduate program, we're all the same, right? We all have degrees, we all think we're smart, and we all think we're going to be CEO by 25. I don't know, maybe I was delusional, but I really believe this about myself. And I think that the cohort I entered in with believe that about themselves too. We were incredibly ambitious and incredibly hungry to make a mark in the organization that we were placed in. So what we all did is we made sure that we networked. And what networking meant to us was every single event that the organization hosts, we are there. Every single opportunity that we have to meet other people, we are there and we show up and we speak about the work that we do. We were literal networking. Like, I don't want to use that kind of language on my channel, but that's the only way I can explain it. Because if I think back about how much we were putting ourselves out there and how it stood us in good stead today, I would redo it again. But we were literally on steroids. And when I look at the grad cohorts that have passed through my hands, but that I've had the pleasure to work with too, the one thing that I noticed that the took away from them is that experience, the networking experience, because we did live and operate in a virtual world for some time. Networking is such an important skill, not just for the workplace, but for everywhere else in the world. Some of my most incredible opportunities and some of my most fulfilling experiences and roles that I've received in the organization I'm in have come from my network. From someone telling someone about me, and then I go for an interview, there's already rapport built and there's already a reputation that preceded me because of the networks that I have, that it just becomes that much easier to land a role and to make a good impression. It's so funny because in the first 2 years of my career, I worked with everybody that I could work with. I had so many projects. I literally turned myself into like a mini consultant in a bank, where I was giving myself to people to use me so that I can get experience in as many environments as I could. And as a result, I started off my career in business banking. I had a stint in retail banking. I've also worked in corporate and investment banking. I've had front and middle office roles, and all of these have come from my networks. It's always been like a coffee and then an interview, and there's already some kind of familiarity with the people you're going to work with. And I guess maybe it's the environment that I work in and operate in, but we're very big on relationships, and as a result, that's how essentially you land opportunities and exposure and new roles. There's some kind of social undercurrent of it all around familiarity and wanting to work with people that you like and that you're fond of. I remember, if I think back to my first 2 years of working, because I was so delusional and audacious, I landed myself on a project that one of our CEOs was sponsoring. And that was probably the one opportunity that changed the trajectory of my career, where I met my mentor and my coach, and the people that I surrounded myself with on that project exposed me not only to projects, to learning new skills, but also to C-suites and other exec leadership that I am still in contact with today. So do not undermine the power of networking. It really is critical for your career, more especially in the beginning. But if you haven't done it thoroughly enough, there's always a chance to build rapport with individuals and build good relationships, because you never know when you're going to need that relationship again. My third lesson and reflection is around the importance of being impeccable with your word. Now, if you haven't read the 4 agreements, being impeccable with your word essentially means mean what you say and say what you mean. Don't say things that you don't mean. And it also highlights the power of the tongue and the words that you speak. And it speaks about how words are spelled, so be careful of the things you say. Use words that build and not words that break. In keeping that in mind, when I say be impeccable with your word, I essentially mean that. It's crazy how you can work for a big corporate, but then you come to realize how small it is when you say you do something and it comes back to you, or it goes to the person who you were saying it about. So what I'm essentially saying is it can be very, very tempting to vent to just anyone about anything, or to even overshare about your personal life, right? So this goes from gossiping about colleagues, your boss, or anyone like that, but even oversharing about your life, drinking a bit too much at the year-end function and things of that nature. You need to always guard your reputation. Guard it with your life, because that's what you have. And also be impeccable with your word. If you say you're going to do something, do it. If you promise to do something, do it, because that builds to your reputation and that builds to your perception as well as your brand. So you want to always make sure that you are showing up consistently to what you're wanting to put out there and how you're wanting to be perceived and labeled. Not being impeccable with your word is the quickest way to make career limiting moves. Gossiping, drinking too much, oversharing, being inappropriate, career limiting moves. These are basically unconscious biases that people don't tell you about, but you see how they affect you, because they end up impacting your progression, the projects you put on, the networks you can build, and who you can essentially befriend in corporate, because people want to be friends with winners. People want to be friends with people who are impeccable. People want to be friends with performers. So try and avoid that as much as possible. As much as you can get friendly with colleagues and build a nice, warm working environment, just remember, your colleagues are not your friends. Your acquaintances are not your friends. This is not your mother's company. So show up, be impeccable, be respectful, and hold yourself in high regard, and everything is going to be okay. Don't forget that. Very important. Point number 4 is one that is very, very, very near and dear to my heart, and that's about the importance of leveraging your organization for self-development. So once you come out of school, high school, university, what you find is that self-development ends up being a you problem. A lot of roles are not rocket science, so if you have a degree, you can learn on the job. So what that essentially means is, if you are not looking for ways to improve yourself, if you're not looking at where the world is going, no one is going to do that for you. And also, no one has the responsibility to do that for you, okay? So if you are the person who is hungry for learning opportunities, wanting to be trained, wanting to be the best in the game, you're going to fall into the mediocrity bucket very, very easily. And it's very easy to do that because there's a lot of mediocrity in corporate, especially big corporates that are inflated, that have thousands and thousands of people. It's easy to hide within the woods. And you can just go overlooked. And if that's a career that you want, that's fine. But on this channel, I believe that we all want to be overachievers, right? We all want to be high performers. So do not do that. Always be hungry for opportunities to learn and to grow. So if I use myself as an example, I got out of school with an undergrad. I didn't have a postgrad when I started working. My parents couldn't afford to put me through another year of school. So as a result, I decided I'm going to go and look for a job. Thank God I landed on a grad program, which was the best move I could have done for myself. And I highly encourage you to find grad programs in big corporates. If you want to start off your career, you learn so much, you grow, and you also get compensated fairly. if you negotiate. But that's a tip for later. I worked for a bit and then I decided that, you know what? I've taken enough of a break from school and I want to get back into it so that I can be competitive in my career. No one suggested this to me. No one recommended this to me. I just felt it's what I needed to do to get my next in my career. Because I was a high performer, I managed to secure a bursary from my employer and they paid for my postgrad. So then I got my postgrad in business administration. A few years passed and then I realized, you know what? I think it's time to go back to school. I always have these long breaks and then I go back to academia. In 2023, I decided it's time to go back to school. I've taken a bit of a break and I want to sharpen my mind again. I want that fire under my butt, you know? I've learned a lot in corporate, but now I want to know, what are other people thinking about? Where is the world of work going? Where is the future? How are future leaders thinking about challenges and problems and how are they solutioning globally? And so I thought, you know what? I think an MBA might be the next best option for me. I applied for my MBA at the University of Cape Town and I've been admitted. So now I will be an MBA candidate in 2024. No one recommended I do this. It was all self-initiated. In between this period from me being a graduate and being on the grad program, no one has ever said, Tshego, you probably should do this. It has all been initiated by myself. I've never put the onus or the burden of my future and my learning and my self-development on anyone else but myself. So I highly encourage you to also do that introspection. If you are a person who's been expecting this from your organization, look for the opportunities and ask for the opportunities, which leads me to my next point, which is the one thing that has served me so well in my career is being delusional and audacious about my career. Not on a single day have I ever thought I can't achieve the things that I want to achieve in big corporates and in the world. I have no limiting self-beliefs about myself and about my capabilities. On the flip side, right, it is important to back it up. It is important to be a high performer and to walk the talk, not just talk the talk. So I'm really great at the work that I do. I know that I'm an asset. I'm very clear on where I add value. And as a result, I can be audacious and delusional. Why? Because over the years, I have learned how to position myself as an asset for my organization and my employer. And therefore, if I ask for something, and I back it up with the value that they can get, mutual benefit actually, they can get and the value that I can get, it's always a yes. And the funny thing is, right, about being delusional, it's incredibly scary, just like negotiating. The first time you negotiate or you try to do like a counter offer, it's like, oh, what if they say, no, we don't want you? And then you learn about the power and the value that you bring. And when you learn how to package that and communicate that, there's almost nothing that corporates can say no to you for. Maybe it won't be a full yes. Maybe it will be a, how do you say it? What do you call this thing of meeting in the middle? You guys know the word that I'm looking for. Maybe it will be that, a compromise, but I've never had corporate flat out say no to me about anything. And I've asked for the craziest things in my career. So this is me as your big sister, as your sister in corporate saying, be audacious. This is not our company. It's no one's mother's company. We all get paid on the same day. As a result, the resources are there. Open your mouth, ask for them, and attach your value so that it's a compelling story and people are not going to say no, trust me. The next point that I want to move on to is the importance of playing the game, aka corporate politicking. Now, I know that a lot of people, especially women, shy away from corporate politics. And it's good, but sometimes it hinders you and it hinders your progress. When you are MIA in the game, you can be forgotten and you can be overlooked for opportunities. I think that corporate politicking is not so important in the beginning of your career. Networking is more important in the beginning of your career, because in all honesty, what value are you adding to a corporate in the first 2-3 years? Nothing, right? You start to harness your skill and to hone your skill and your niches in corporate at around, I'd say, the 4-year mark, especially if you're working in a big corporate that is slow moving. it takes some time for people to believe that you can do what you in your audacious mind think you can do. So I'd say like corporate politicking is for when you are now at like the middle senior management level and about to clock into the exec level, which is around the point where I'm at. That's when it's important, because it becomes more about the politicking than about the work. We are all at this level because we can do the work. We all have the skills. We've all done the hard yards. So what are you bringing to the table that's a bit extra than I know how to do the work? Because at that level, at like a senior management level, you have people who actually support you in doing the work. You have analysts who pull data, you've got teams who put things together for you, and you are essentially getting paid now for the way that you think, and the way that you lobby, and the way that you influence. So those are the things that you need to start now sharpening and honing. I think a lot of women shy away from corporate politicking because yes, it can get ugly and it's very, very tricky, but I suggest that you ease yourself into it. Start playing the game or even observing the game, so that once you literally land into like the end of your middle manager, getting into your senior manager environment, you have sight of how the game is played. One of the things that I did in order to understand corporate politicking is taking on roles in strategy. So taking roles in strategy offices where you are dealing with C-suite and multiple seniors and executives, and seeing how they communicate, seeing how they storytell, seeing how they influence, how they negotiate, and taking on those skills and seeing how I can apply them for myself to make them authentic to who I am. I did that for quite some time. Actually, for bulk of my career, I did a lot of like strategy office work where I studied corporate politicking, and I absolutely love that. So if you can get the opportunity to work with and get exposure to execs and C-suite, that will stand you in good stead when you need to start playing that game. But for now, I think it's very important to understand the landscape and also understand how to play the game. The one thing that I do want to say to a lot of people who are entering the workplace, aka what are they now? Gen Z, ne? A lot of the Gen Zs is you may not like to play the game and you may not think that the game applies to you, but it does. And in time you will see. The reason why I say that the game applies to Gen Zs who are in big corporates is because they are in big corporates. The game doesn't apply to you if you like are your own entrepreneur, your own boss, or maybe if your startup is run by a millennial or a Gen Z. But if you're in a corporate where at the tippy top layer, it's still run by boomers, Gen Xers, not even millennials, you're still playing the old game. So it's important for you to learn how to play that game and how to, I don't know what the word is, but posture yourself in that light so that you are included in the game. Because whether you are participating or not, the game is still gaming and you are still a participant whether you are actively or passively participating. So actively participate, just like building your corporate brand. Actively build it, actively control it, or someone is going to do it for you and you don't want that. So point number 7 is one that I think is very tricky and not often spoken about and very important. And this one is around being intentional about the skills you're acquiring. So you'll know in the beginning, I mentioned how I was literally like a networking hoe and a hoe for opportunities, and I took everything, and it has stood me in good stead because now bulk of my career is me being a generalist, me being a strategist, and I love that work because I am a big picture thinker. I love to be creative. I'm not a technical person. Someone else can do that. I can build the concepts and the strategies, and that's how I like to work. And those are where my strengths are. But if, for example, you land yourself in a generalist position and you want to be technical, there's going to be a tough decision that you're going to need to make around maybe taking a step back in your career to go and learn the technical competencies if the role that you want to move to is incredibly technical. An example of that is, for example, I'm going to use a bank, right? Because this is the environment I'm most familiar with. In a bank, there's multiple franchises. There's a retail bank, there's the commercial bank, and then there's the corporate bank that has investment banking, global markets, TPS, and all of that. So the way that I like to position it is this environment, the retail bank, has a lot of volumes, but it's quite simple in the solutions that are created. The complexity is in serving the multitudes of the people. That's the complexity of this environment. The corporate office, the commercial office, or the commercial franchise is very much in the middle, where you're no longer serving individuals. You're still serving numbers, but now you're serving businesses, corporates, not individuals. Yes, individuals look after those corporates, but it's not like a B2C, it's a B2B now. And then you get to the big corporates, the listed companies. These different environments have different requirements and complexities. It's not impossible, but it is quite challenging to move from being a seasoned private banker to being an investment banker, for example. And when you start off on, let's say, a grad program, there are obviously different programs that you put on, but if you do not want to see yourself in this space, it's important to make that transition quickly, because the longer you stay in this environment, it becomes really sticky and difficult for you to transition. So that's what I mean about being intentional about the skills that you want to acquire. As much as life and planning can be overwhelming, and thinking about 5-year plans and 10-year plans and all the rest of it can be quite daunting and overwhelming, if you work in an environment like that, where there are technical skills for what you want to do them early in your career. Transition, network, and push yourself to whichever direction you're wanting to move to, and do it early. Because if you wait longer in your career, you might not be able to transition, or you might need to take a step back in your career. And maybe you don't want that for financial reasons, or I don't know, whatever other reasons to do that. So that's what I mean about being intentional about the skills that you acquire and about how you position yourself. Know the organizational landscape and be 100% sure of your career plan. Even if it's not in detail, no, I want to land in this pillar, or I want to land in this pillar, or I want to land in the research hub, and drive yourself there. Because if you stay in one pillar for too long, it's going to be almost impossible for you to move out, and you're going to need to do something drastic later on in your career to reposition yourself, and you don't want to do that. So the next point, which I really do think is the most important point, is around the topic of negotiation. I know I covered it in an earlier point, but essentially, the reason why I want to circle back to it is because I want to just emphasize on the importance of negotiating and knowing what is out there from a compensation perspective. I've made the mistake early in my career where I kept it sacred, I didn't talk about it, I didn't explore, I didn't think about the repercussions of not negotiating early in my career. And I think I'm at a point in my career now where I have kind of almost recouped all of those setbacks, but I do still believe and feel I'm at a back foot, and I don't want you to make the same mistake. So what I'm saying is, it's important from the very first offer that you get in corporate, negotiate that offer. Never say yes to the first offer. When you get an offer on your table, you already have the upper hand with the employer, so use it. Think about that compelling positioning that you're going to relay in order to make them see your true value and believe in your true value, and pay you what you believe would be fair compensation for your skills and your value and your future potential that you're going to be bringing into the organization. If there is anything from these 8 tips that I have shared today that you want me to double click on and build another video about, go deeper into, let me know in the comment section. I am so open to sharing and helping, just like I was helped in my career to be where I am today and to be where I'm going to be in the future. There are people who shared knowledge with me, who empowered me with skills and with lessons. And I want to do that for you as my community on YouTube. So please don't be shy. Please drop your comments below. Please drop your questions below. And if you have anything else to add and you want to add on so that the community can thrive and grow and learn, please leave it down in the comment section. If you want to to continue watching some videos on my channel, I'd highly recommend my Zara haul. This is where I go through what I bought from Zara, obviously, and how I style it for corporate. A lot of my styling is very much corporate influence because obviously I'm always at work. So those are the clothes that I mostly buy. So if you're keen to see how I style my wardrobe and how I show up in corporate, definitely give this video a watch. That's it from me for today. I hope you enjoyed this new video. Ciao for now. See you next time.